Hi, and welcome to Storytime at the International Quilt Museum. I'm Lauren Holt, Education Coordinator at the museum, and today I'm going to be reading At the Wish of the Fish, a Russian folktale adapted by J. Patrick Lewis and illustrated by Katya Krenina. Today's reading is presented online with permission from Simon Schuster. This story originates sometime before the 1850s, and like most folktales, there are many versions of it because every storyteller picks out certain elements that they think are the most important to pass on. So this one might be a little bit different from other versions that you've heard. There are also some Russian words in this version that you might not be familiar with. The first one is kaftan, which is a long coat or suit with tight sleeves. The second is Tsar, which is usually translated as either king or emperor. And then there's also Tsarevna, which was the term used to refer to the daughter of the Tsar until about the 1700s. The choice for today's reading is inspired by our Glasnost of Folktales exhibition, which features many quilts that highlight different scenes from Russian folktales, including one from this tale. Like other forms of art, people make quilts for lots of different reasons, including intentions of storytelling and for intercultural exchange. And so I hope by the end of this book, you'll feel that you have learned something new about Russian culture. Without further ado, At the Wish of the Fish. Once long ago, in a kingdom beyond blue kingdoms, there lived 3 brothers. The first 2 were clever lads, riding off to the Suzdal fair to trade their wares. The youngest brother, Amelia, was a simpleton, a silly goose, a pancake. Take your pick. He was all 3 in one. We will be gone for a month, Amelia, said the 2 older brothers. While we're away, listen to our wives and obey their every command. If you do as you're told, a new red kaftan, red boots, and a red hat will be your reward. A red kaftan, Amelia shouted from his usual spot on top of his beloved broken-down stove, which stood in a corner collecting cobwebs. So simple was he that he thought it kept him warm. Almost immediately, he fell back asleep. A day passed, 2 days, then a week. Get up off that stove, Amelia, his sisters-in-law cried. Fetch us some water, you lazy boots. I don't want to, Amelia replied sleepily. I'm comfortable right where I am. There will be no red kaftan for you unless you fetch us some water for our cooking. Wait till our husbands hear this. What a bother to be out in the cold, Amelia grumbled to himself as he gathered up 2 pails and an axe and trudged down the hill to the lake. There he whacked a hole in the ice and lowered his bucket into the water. Oh, 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 he exclaimed. Look at the pike that's jumped into my pail. Won't I be eating tasty fish soup for my supper? Wait, said the Frisky Pike. If you throw me back in and let me swim free, I will give you anything you desire. I'm not the brightest fellow in the world, Amelia laughed, but this sounds like a trick. What do you think? Do you think it's a trick? I'll have to find out. No trick, just say my name, the pike explained, and whatever you wish for shall be yours. He's got holes in his boots. No wonder he wants new boots. So Amelia said, By the will of the pike, do as I like. Send my pails back home all by themselves. Instantly, the 2 buckets galloped up the hill, where the villagers stood gawking at the sight. The pails ran all the way home and into the cottage without spilling a drop. Seems pretty magical. Maybe it's not a trick. Now time passed and the moss grew, but which one the faster, who could say? Amelia, winter is still beating at the door, said the sisters-in-law. Go to the forest and bring back a sleighful of kindling. Otherwise, you'll be lucky to see that red kaftan in your dreams. Amelia did as he was told. He heaved 2 axes and a coil of rope into the sleigh and pushed the sleigh into the snow. Jumping up on the seat, he shouted to the women to open the gate. They did so, all the while waiting for more foolishness to fall forth from his lips. "How can you go anywhere, you fool?" they laughed. "You haven't hitched up the horse." "Who needs a horse?" he replied. "At the Pike's request, the sleigh runs west." And so it did, racing through the village so fast that the peasants had no time to get out of the way. "Slow down! Watch out!" they shouted, but the horseless sleigh flew on and on. Finally alone in the silent wood, Amelia cried out, "If it please the Pike, let the axes strike. Come out of the forest, I spare, and tie the logs into small bundles." Just so the 2 axes fell on the trees, one at the roots and one at the branches, and suddenly there he was, a giant ice bear, neatly stacking the logs in the sleigh without so much as a growl. Amelia returned home the way he came, but this time the villagers were waiting for him. They would have thrashed him soundly too, but he said, "In the Pike's good name, 4 clubs take aim." Magically, 4 logs broke free of the rope and raised themselves up out of the sleigh, threatening to wallop anyone who harmed the driver. Amelia sped safely home, climbed up on the stove, and fell fast asleep. It wasn't long before the Tsar heard from the angry peasants about the silly goose who flew through the snow on a horseless sleigh, scattering citizens hither and yon. So he ordered a regiment of his imperial guards to fetch Amelia and to bring him to the palace at once. When they arrived at the cottage, the commanding officer said in a gruff voice, "Get up, good for nothing. You are wanted at the Tsar's palace." "I would rather stay here, thank you," Amelia said. "My stove is all the comfort I need." The officer was about to cuff him across the ear when Amelia wished, "If the Pike can hear, make them disappear, back to the Tsar who sent them." Poof! The entire regiment flew away in a flash, and soon they stood, dazed and silent, before the Tsar. "What's this?" His Majesty exclaimed, amazed that Amelia could have vanquished so many men. "Perhaps the simpleton isn't so simple after all. This time I will send the wisest man in the kingdom to fetch the fool, by trickery, if need be." What do you think's going to happen? A week later, the wise man came upon Amelia's sisters-in-law feeding the chickens in the yard. "Tell me what he likes most," he whispered. "Foolish Amelia loves nothing but the old wood stove he sleeps on," the first one said. "That and the promise of a new red caftan, red boots, and red hat," the second one laughed. "Ah," thought the wise man as he entered the cottage. "Come with me to the Tsar's palace, my fine fellow, and you shall have a brand new suit of clothes, red from toes to crown." Amelia agreed, but he said, "You go along, and I will follow after." Then he sat for a while on top of his stove, thinking this and wondering that. "If the Pike's nearby, let this wood stove fly. Take me to the Tsar." There he is, flying on his wood stove. Flying wood stove. No sooner had he spoken than the roof rattled, the walls shook, and the dusty stove bolted out the door, through the trees and into the sky. Leaning out the palace window, the Tsar saw the fool and his stove come flying toward him at breakneck speed. Sounds a bit scary. I don't know that I'd want to see a flying stove. "Amelia the simpleton," the Tsar roared as the stove landed right on top of the courtyard statue of the Tsar himself. "You knocked over half a village on your horseless sleigh. What do you have to say for yourself?" "Forgive me, your highness. Should I have asked them to get out of the way?" Amelia asked, scratching his head. At that moment he looked up and saw, for the first time, the beautiful Tsarevna, Maria, in the uppermost window. "At the Pike's pleasure, bring me this treasure," he said softly. "Let the Tsar's daughter fall in love with me." Faster than a mouse on a cat's watch, Maria ran down the stairs and into the yard and begged her father to let her marry Amelia. The Tsar raged at the very thought of his own daughter wanting to wed the flying fool. have disgraced the royal house, Marya, and you simpleton scoundrel, the Tsar bellowed. Seize him. Amelia was so dazzled by the Tsarevna's beauty that he did not even think to ask the pike to help him escape. The Tsar ordered that Amelia and Marya be stuffed into a huge barrel wrapped with an iron band. Quickly, the guards followed orders, sealed the barrel with tar, and cast it out to sea. Quick turn of events there. Change of fortunes. Now, the dart inside the barrel and the gentle lapping of the waves soon put Amelia to sleep. He sleeps a lot, doesn't he? Apparently he can sleep a lot of places. But hours later, hunger woke him. Where am I? He asked. Someone was sobbing next to him. And who are you? Amelia whispered, for he could not see a thing in the pitch-black barrel. They are dark. Oh, my beloved Emilyushka, don't you remember? I am Marya, the Tsar's daughter, she said, overcome by the fate that had befallen him. How shall we ever get out of this barrel? See how she changed his name? Instead of calling him Amelia, she calls him Emilyushka. I think that's to show that she loves him, she cares about him. Touched by the Tsarevna's tears, Amelia said, By the pike's command, let us find dry land, and not too far away from the Tsar. Break apart barrel, as soon as we are safe. Don't want it to break apart beforehand. Don't want to get lost in the ocean. There they are on the shore. Whoosh! A giant wave flung the barrel up on a green and wild shore. Crack! Went the barrel, and out stepped the young couple. Could you find us something to eat, Emilyushka? Marya begged, and build us a little hut to keep the rain away? Dear pike most loyal, may life be royal, with a house full of food and a fool's gratitude. The pike must have been feeling especially generous, for what was once the windy shore became a palace so grand that even the Tsar himself would not believe it. Inside, Marya and Amelia gazed at the riches before them. I have but one more wish, Amelia said aloud. What is it? The fair Tsarevna asked. If the pike should rule, make me less a fool. So he's wishing for wisdom. Instantly, Amelia turned into a dashing noble, handsome as a prince, clever as a duke. Go to the Tsar, Amelia told a servant, and invite him to dinner at our palace. So a palace and food and servants, a very generous pike. The servant arrived at the royal court and delivered the message. Who is your master? Asked the Tsar. That is a mystery, Your Majesty, but you will find out soon enough. So the royal party mounted their horses and rode to Amelia's grand palace. Such splendor had never been seen before. Amelia welcomed the Tsar. Do you know who I am, Your Majesty? By the moon and stars, my dear prince, I have never seen you before. Have you forgotten the fool on the flying stove? And as he said these words, Amelia led the Tsar's daughter into the room. So great was his Majesty's shock and shame that he knelt before his daughter. Forgive me, dearest Marya, for my ignorance. I have done you a great injustice, Amelia. You shall have my daughter's hand in marriage, and a wedding fit for a king. But Amelia insisted that his brothers and sisters-in-law, and all manner of common folk, be invited to the glorious ball under the chandeliers. There, prince and peasant, rich and poor, ate and drank and danced till dawn. His brothers, and there's Amelia and the Tsarevna, sisters-in-laws in fancy clothes. That looks like quite a fancy dish there. Though Amelia and Marya lived for many years in that peaceful kingdom, the once-upon-a-time simpleton never forgot the great good fortune bestowed upon him by the pike. And often he was heard to say, as he strolled through the gardens in his princely red caftan, By the will of a fish, I have done all I wish. So he never forgot the favors done to him by the pike, and the pike never forgot his generosity in letting him go free. So I hope you enjoyed that story. And if you'd like to see the quilt based on this tale, it will be on display with the rest of the Glasnevin Folktale exhibition through February 14th, or you can see it online at internationalquiltmuseum.org. Have a great day, and I hope you'll join us next time.